Alrighty, so let's say I'm like, hey Andrea, we have this story ready. You would then download it from that Google folder, save it somewhere onto your computer where you can then reference it. And then what
Hmm.
we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and let's see, I don't think you can see my full screen. I think we're just, there we go. So then what we want to do when we open Adobe, we are going to click that we want to start a new multi-track session.
Hmm.
And then from here, I would then save it as like Eileen's tiny story. And then I would save this within the same file that I already have for her. In case you
Hmm.
have to save it, step away, you aren't able to complete it all, you'll have that session started.
Hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and click save here where I have her folder and then click OK.
Hmm.
So now this started the new multi-track session for us. And
Hmm.
then let me go ahead and zoom in just to this window. Okay, so from here, what we want to do, we want to click under files and click open.
Hmm.
And then this is where you would find the one that you pulled, the unedited version.
Hmm.
And then we're going to see this here pop up in the waveform that you're familiar with. But we're going
Hmm.
to click next to it where it says multi-track. And all we're
Okay.
going to do is drag this into the first one. And then we're going to click OK.
Okay.
Alrighty. So from here, what I'm going to do, you're already familiar with like how to cut and chop.
Hmm.
Okay. So for example, I'm going to push play so we can listen to it again.
Hmm.
All right, Miss Eileen. Now that you're 100 years old, what do you remember most about growing up and all that you did in a greenhouse?
Okay. So with that, we saw that this didn't start until the beginning where she has that question, right? So
Hmm.
what I would do is I would get the razor blade and then I would cut it so that it just starts with that question. And
Hmm.
then we do have a little bit of space here, which is okay, but there was a little bit of a longer gap here. So
Hmm.
I would cut out some of this time
Okay.
and then erase what we have in the beginning and the middle, and then just slide everything over to the side.
Hmm.
So then now when we hear it, it's going to sound a little bit more natural.
Hmm.
Now that you're 100 years old, what do you remember most about growing up and all that you did in a greenhouse?
Okay, so as we're looking at it, this is where you will gauge like, okay, this is a long gap.
Hmm. Oh, she repeats the question,
Now
no?
that you're 100,
Hmm?
I was gonna say she repeats the question, no?
Yeah, she repeats the question. So I would recommend to cut out any confusion until she's just answering it. Um,
Hmm.
that way it's because I kind of think of in the shoes of like, okay, if this is Eileen's family listening to it, it's gonna sound much nicer when they're just hearing her voice and recollecting that than the pausing moments where it's too much and could be distracting.
Hmm.
So at that time, this is where you can kind of listen to it, play around. You can chop up any sections that you don't think are needed.
Hmm.
Um, so I
years
think,
old, when you were growing up, what all did you do in the greenhouse? Well, I tended to flowers that were coming and you let them seed and
so like this is fine to keep. You might want to cut it shorter in between, but
Hmm.
I'm gonna leave this for you to practice. I just wanted to show you like how I would do it. I would still clip out some of the section in the beginning, but let's say for example, you're like, okay, I have my story, I have the first one. I want to show you how you would move it then to the next one and then how you would save them. So for example, let's say this is the end of the story here. And you're
Hmm.
like, okay, I've reached the end here, and then the new question starts. What we would do is click on this symbol, and then we would separate and drag this into a new one.
Okay.
Just want to move this to the far front. But the problem is when we push play, we're going to hear both overlapping.
now that
Hmm.
you're 100 years old,
So chaos, right? Because it's too much happening at once. So here, what we can do, we can mute this. So then it's going to go ahead and gray it out. So then
Hmm.
now you can just focus on the next one.
Okay.
what all did you plant? And then I too, another thing too.
And then this is how you can work on your project. And you can just kind of keep clipping it, keep breaking it out to what you think makes sense. And again, for tiny stories, I think it's fine if it's like a minute, 2 minutes. Sometimes it's longer, but that's really up to your best judgment of just like, okay, I don't want to cut the story too short if she's still telling it. Um,
Right.
because there's been some communities like Peachtree, for example, they submitted like a 40-minute story, which is nuts. They never listened to the rules. It's Mary Beth, and it was a really great story. So it's like there's one-off instances like that where there was a resident just like so full of wisdom, really recollecting things, and I'm just like, you know what? That's okay. Like
Mhm,
this is still their story. We're gonna keep it long, but some
mhm.
things still have to be clipped. Sometimes there's instances where it's still really long, and I'm like, I barely have to clip anything. This is just a good story.
Yeah.
The goal is to kind of encourage the teams like, hey, and please only send something 10 minutes or less because if not, a 40-minute audio will take a long time, right?
Mhm,
And then that becomes challenging because I'm like, that's not a tiny story. But we still want to honor that. But that's kind of the gist of like how we would do it. And then if you wanted to break this again into your next third story, you would follow the same thing. So you
mhm.
would cut it wherever you're ready, and then you would just drag this into the next one and go and move it to the very front. And
Okay.
then you would mute this. So then once you are happy with all of your stories, the way that you would download and save each one, I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the very, very end. So let's say we want to save just track one. I
Mhm.
would then highlight this and go to the front, and then I would click, let me do my full screen because it doesn't show how I'm saving it. Okay. So I would then click File, I
Mhm.
would click Export, and then I would do multi-track mixdown, selected clip. So
Okay.
that way it's going to pull over just that one clip. And
Okay.
then this is where you can go ahead and name it. So if it was Eileen's greenhouse memory, you can name it that. Or Eileen's experience in a greenhouse, you would do that. So I'm
Mhm.
just going to do test one, for example, just so that we can see it only pulled that of what we wanted. So I'm going to click to confirm this is already in the same file that I was looking at for Eileen. And it's
Mhm.
just going to be like test one or whatever you save it as story one, and click save,
Okay.
and then click OK. So then when that happens, I'm going to go back into my file where I have Eileen's folder just to double check that that saved how I wanted to and it didn't download everything. So with my window here, I'm going to
Now
click.
that you're 100 years old, what do you remember most about growing up
Okay.
and all that you did in a greenhouse?
For some reason, when I click on audio, it opens in iMusic. Open there, but it's because the default for where it's playing. But you'll see that only saved because it's 41 seconds. So it didn't save everything. I think as you get the hang of it, you'll find that for me, when I first started to do this, that's
Mhm.
what I needed to figure out because it would save everything at once. And then you
Mm.
separate the stories. So what I usually do is just go to the very, very end, highlight it, and then export that as that single track section.
Okay.
Same would be here. You would follow the same steps of highlighting it. You would click on File, Export, Multi-track, and only the selected clips. And then you can name that specific story what you want.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
No, not
Okay.
yet. Anyways, no. Just specifically on the sound itself, there was some. If it ever goes into the red, are we wanting to kind of lower it down so it's not super loud like that, or are we okay with how the sound comes in?
If you can, that would be great.
Okay.
I do have one that I need edited that you'll notice it. At the very beginning, there's like a Lord crash. No idea what something happens in the community where I think some people are doing things behind the scenes and then
Yeah.
it's like boom. And it's just like that's one of the things that we want to like mute down. Or if we hear too much muffled noise, we can do that setting where it mutes everything. And I can email that to you too. I have instructions for that on how to like mute the noise in the background if you're
Okay.
not familiar with that. But that's pretty much the gist of it. I would love for you just to practice with it, clip
Yeah.
the story down, and then once you feel like you are good to go and you have it squared away, I would please ask that you update the files here and that
Mhm.
you work on transcribing it.
Mhm.
Um, and then this is where grammar is very important and punctuation, but it's a little unorthodox, right? Because you're following in the way that they're speaking. And when people speak, it's not always like how you read it in a book.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll kind of see that with practice that if there's pauses, I sometimes put dot, 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 or I
Mm-hmm.
put things in quotes, or I break it up. So I would put, for example, for this one, interviewer, and then put
Mm-hmm.
the question that they asked.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would put like Eileen, and then you can put how she answered it. So you can kind of do that dialogue, or sometimes you may find that in a story you can just put the answer of what they're talking about and then they jump into the next thing.
Okay.
So it varies, but
Mm-hmm.
it's to your best judgment and we can kind of work on that together.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. 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 Do you have any questions?
No, I feel pretty confident in it. So I think if you want to send that test over, more than happy to work on it.
Okay, cool. And then I will warn you because at the end of this, if you're like, Samantha, I love this. I want to keep doing this. This is great. I'm gonna be like, Andrea, you're my girl. Let's get this organized. Let's get this going. And then I have a lot in the chamber for you to edit.
Okay. We'll be like,
So
okay, you said you wanted
yeah,
it.
because I'm sending you a really short one just so that you can kind of play around with it. You'll
Okay.
find the short ones you can get through pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I have the way that I organize these, let me show you. I have this all in an Excel sheet. So
Okay.
as they come in, I have it organized here, and then I mark the yellow ones are the ones I'm behind on that I need help on. But
Okay.
if it's green, I'm like, okay, great, this is doable, this is quick. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's in red, anything over 10 minutes, I'll put it like in orange. So we know
Okay.
that one's going to be a little bit more time consuming and more work to break down, just depending on how that audio is.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll kind of be organized this way. And my hope is that in the future, if there's like a big influx, like let's say we're caught up and then the holidays come and we're encouraging more, and then we get like 20 stories. We would
Mm-hmm.
tag team that together. I don't want to bombard you with all these things. I'm going to be like, hey, Andrea, this is a lot. Let's work on this together. You take these, I'll take these, and we can kind of keep them going that way.
Okay.
And then once we do have like that test one done and we start to get these going, what I will do is send you a form that you'll
Mm-hmm.
use kind of like as a freelance like summary. You'll kind of document how much you edited, how long it took, and then you would just send that over to me periodically, and then we'll get you your invoices that way too.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, cool. I'm excited.
Okay, me too. I know. Now I'm excited. I'm excited to go home and kind of mess around with it.
Yeah, I would say headphones are your best friend for this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they're your best friend because sometimes residents they talk very soft and you can't
Mm-hmm.
hear things, or if you have background things going on, it'll be a big help. Um, but yeah, I would love to send this over to you. I will
Okay.
send you the link for the Google document. And
Okay.
then if you have any questions editing it, or if you're like, hey, I'm looking at this part in it, what do you think? Please email me. I'm more than happy to like listen to it, see what's going on, and we can kind of figure that out too.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
And then
All right.
my hope would be that we also meet at a regular cadence once we have this, just to kind of check in with one another.
Mhm.
So I'll send this over to you, and then maybe we can meet sometime next week once you have that done, and we can kind
Yeah.
of check back in on next steps.
All right. Sounds perfect.
Okay, awesome,
All
Andrea. Thank you
right.
so much. I'm
Thank
excited.
you. Have a good weekend.
You too. All right, nice seeing
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.